Right. um, okay. Nearly, nearly 3 hours ago, I had a rather unpleasant experience, which I don't know how to put this into words. I had a feeling that this would happen. Um, again, I don't know how to put this into words. You know when I'm losing my voice. I was so distressed earlier. There was an incident earlier. Um, I've just been speaking to the owner of a hotel. Um, oh, I've lost my camera. Where's it gone? Oh, excuse me. Oh, losing my voice. Oh, yes, there was an incident. Excuse me for coughing. I got quite upset because a hotel receptionist and a hotel manager um, have made some very serious false accusations about me. It's very interesting as well because I've stayed at this hotel before. It's an Eastbourne hotel. Yes, it's always Eastbourne. Always Eastbourne. The fun and games of Eastbourne hotels. They've got so much to hide in this town. Um, Honestly, the fakery from that receptionist. I had a feeling about this receptionist, this female receptionist. Now I've got to be very, very careful. I'm not going to name the hotel. I'm going to be very careful how I describe it as well, because I've got to protect myself and other people. But I now I know there's so much nonsense that goes on. I have seen and experienced everything. But I would like to know if this sort of thing is quite common. Because when you read reviews, and believe me, I've seen and heard and experienced everything. Uh, I've now learned from these very appalling experiences that there can be a thing called miscommunication. That can be interpreted in many different ways. Because I've spoken to the owner of a hotel, and this horrible, horrible fake receptionist and horrible manager who have proved themselves to be devious. Um, just, I can't even find the words. But if a manager can actually say, no, I'm above the owner of the owner of the hotel, and continue this attack, these false accusations, when the hotel owner is apologetic and having to calm him down, having to calm the manager down. What can I say? The hotel owner is from overseas, and I think he feels awkward. I've lost my voice almost. I've had to obviously stay very calm in all this hell I'm going through. I assumed he was a hotel guest because he came over to me from nowhere. He just came out of nowhere and he said, "Are you okay? Can I get you some water?" And I was aware that there were hotel guests listening to my anger and disgust at what this receptionist was saying to me. Again, my partner is never anywhere to be seen. But these are very, very serious false accusations. And my partner was talking about keeping a good relationship with this hotel. Now, this particular hotel I've stayed in before. They said, "I'm a loyal guest. We've been here before. I'm a loyal guest." Now, we know how obstreperous people get when people, you make complaints. Now, I've seen, as I said, I've seen and experienced everything. I'm at a point now where I'm in Stockholm syndrome with the Eastbourne hotels. I'm still having unpleasant experiences, but I'm having to keep a good relationship with the ones that are left for the sake of sheer sanity. And I know that there will be people out there, the silent majority, as Penelope Keith put it in The Good Life, and the silent majority. And there will be people out there like me who will appreciate this. And pray, Abba Yahweh, that those people get to see this. Now I'm just hoping that this hotel owner, he said, I he listened to me afterwards. Got me some water. I chatted to him for a bit. He knew straight away that I was a lovely lady because he was having to speak in his own language to the manager who said he's seen me before. Well, they're obviously more paranoid than I am because I cannot remember this manager. I stayed at particular hotel last week. I had to do what I've just done. I had to go away and come back to this hotel because of availability and prices. The hotels are just extortionate in the summer, and I've spent thousands of pounds on the hotels. What had happened was this lady, this receptionist, so fake. I had, I had, when you've got a gut feeling, when you know something is going to happen before it happens. You just have a feeling about that person. Now, my partner had said, just make sure you check out on time. I said, I will check out on time because I'm only going for one night, so I'm only taking an overnight bag. Yes, but just make sure that you check out on time. He was meant to come back to me last night and he keeps doing this. He keeps going away saying he'll come back and then he never comes back to help me with my bags. So I'm left alone. But as it was, it was only overnight, so I only used, sponge. Didn't wash my hair because my hair's clean, you know, just the essentials, toothbrush, sponge, and, but I take a long time doing everything. Um, and it's really, the hotel is so quiet. You could hear a pin drop. Um, the room assistants are never there. Now they don't do a late checkout. I asked if she could do a late checkout last time, and she said no. I'm sorry, we can't. We're busy. Every hotel does a late checkout, but because this receptionist it's all false. They won't look after my bags, so I've actually left some bags in the lounge. Now, I'm in a catch-22. I like this hotel owner, but I think he needs to change his policies a bit because of what has just happened. Maybe they'll learn from this. He was so nice, so nice. But they need to learn from this because what that manager has done, he's overridden. He's above, he said, well, he's young. Yes, I know. But he's not just a young manager, he's a bully. In this hotel, I haven't told the manager. I did actually. I told the manager about the boy who was. They had someone come from London who was here temporarily, and he assault. He was abusive to me, and I watched him assault one of the boys that cleans the rooms here, and I felt sorry for him. I said, "You shouldn't take that." So, and he was like, "Oh, I'm used to it." I don't like that. I don't like bullies now because I've worked with them, haven't I? I've done care work. I yeah. This is why I am in this position. Which is why I've got a landlady in contempt of court who wanted to help me write a book, who's got a lot to hide, clearly. Um, and why I'm being attacked for my free speech on YouTube. This refusing to call my sister a man business. Because this man was speaking to the manager in another language. He's come from overseas. He lives abroad in his. I don't know which country he comes from, but he's from another country. He's overseas. The hotel owner of that hotel, and I had a really nice chat with him. So anyway, so basically, what happened was, um, they don't do a late checkout. Um, so it even if you ask for one. But as it was, it got to 11:30, and I was like, oh, it was nearly midday, and I was taking my bags downstairs, and she was smart. She said, "All right, can I have the key?" I said, "Oh, I've just got a couple more bags to bring down," because I didn't say to her my partner is supposed to be staying with me and helping me. I just said, "Oh, I need to get some more bags." And she said, "Well, you need to go and get them, or I'll have to charge you." And she's saying this with smiles. It's there's no need for it. I didn't say anything. I was going to say to her, look, it's very quiet up there. No one's knocked on my door. There are no room assistants. Um, like 2 hours later, the room assistants hadn't gone in there because I was demanding that the hotel owner and the manager see that I hadn't damaged the room because of what I'm about to say. Because this receptionist has gone into her funny head and started making false accusations about me. Anyway, I'll get there in a minute. So what happened was I went back upstairs to bring the bags down. You see, what they do is it's all smiles. She was so I know what people are like behind those smile. They give it away. They just give it away. So basically, I said, could I please leave my bags behind the desk? I haven't got much. Um, I need to go to the shops, and I don't want obviously I don't want to carry all this stuff. I've now checked into this hotel because it's now coming up to 3 o'clock. And I've got my laptop here and my valuables here, but the other bags are still in the other hotel, and they're unattended in the lounge, so anyone could steal them because this receptionist refused to take my bag. She said it's hotel policy. I'm very sorry. We can't take your bags because we just can't. They're open. We only take suitcases. It's a stupid policy. Now, I was doing the same as her. I was putting on the smiles. For one thing, I've been traumatized so much that I've lost my confidence to say exactly how I really feel because of everything that's happened with the council and the rest of it, mental health, blah, 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 the corruption, the psychopaths, the police, blah, 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 blah. So she didn't want to take my open bags. This is where it gets fun. Yes, this is where it gets really interesting. Just take a sip of tea. So I thought, keep the smiles, Bryony, keep being polite. I said, look, I don't see why you can't. I said, other hotels have looked after my bags. I mean, this particular hotel, they've got suitcases, bags, loads of things of mine behind their reception desk. Loads of stuff. Like loads of it. This is why I need to keep a good relationship with the hotel. Well, every hotel is different. That's our hotel policy. I said, I do appreciate that, and I genuinely do, because every hotel is different. Not every hotel has a storage room, blah, blah, blah. Believe me, I've seen when you've spent thousands of pounds on Eastbourne hotels, when you've had bed bugs crawl on you, when you've been attacked by convicted criminals, when you've helped a woman beaten to a pulp, when you've helped the police, when you've seen cockroaches, you've seen everything. Okay, so you know what the hotels do and don't provide. You've seen all the Basil 40s and you've seen the genuinely nice ones, which you can whittle it down. Because obviously, for example, as I was saying to this hotel owner, I told him everything. I told him I could have played that recording. I didn't actually play it to him on the dictaphone of the criminal attacking me. But I even told him about the duty manager of the Citrus Hotel, whom I profusely thanked, who reached out to the MP, and then he decided he cancelled my reservation. Yeah, every horror story under the sun. So anyway, so this lady, this receptionist, I appreciate that they have their hotel policy, and every hotel's different. All I said was, look, I won't accuse you of stealing anything or anything like that. I won't. It's an open bag. Although I've just realised you could still steal something from a suitcase, couldn't you? So she's not really making any sense. She said, we only take closed suitcases and bags because otherwise you could accuse us of stealing something. Now, this is what is really weird about this receptionist and this hotel manager. They're very, I don't know if they're brother and sister, because the hotel owner spoke to the manager in a different language. He was trying to say, whatever he was saying to him, I think he was saying, look, this is a nice lady. Because he was really, they don't like me. They don't like me because I've queried something, and I've done it very politely. Believe me, I'm having to hide so much anger because of the trauma. So I'm being fair about this. It's about being fair. And I just said, look, I don't see why you can't appreciate your hotel policy, but I want to go into town. She said, madam, and that you could see she was really faking smiles. And that's when she started being condescending, fake. Look, I don't want to argue with you, so that's how it is, okay? It was words to that effect. And I said, look, you don't need to be condescending. I said, why you? And then she brought up the late checkout thing. I think either she did or I did. One of us did. I think she brought it up. And I said, look, why are you now? I think she brought it up because I then said, why are you now bringing up the late checkout? I said, I haven't had that problem in other hotels. There was no one to clean the room, knocking on the door. And even the hotel owner agreed with me. You know, we have lots of people checking out late. 11 o'clock, 12 midday, that's fine. There's no problem with that. So the problem is with this receptionist, because she's saying to me, "Oh, I'll charge you." You don't treat. Now, she then said that I was a loyal hotel guest, and this is where it gets serious and insane and demented because she's making no sense. She said, "You're a loyal guest. We had a problem with you. You damaged things in the room last time." I said, "I beg your pardon." Yeah, you imagine being in my position. How would you react? I said, "That is a very serious, false, and slanderous accusation. It is very serious because you're accusing a guest of criminal damage. It's very serious." Even the manager who said, "I know you, I remember," he was lying to my face about me, lying to my face. I said, "I've never seen you before." "I've seen you before." I said, "Well, you obviously remember me more than I remember you, but you are lying to me because I said, "I'm a very clean, I've got OCD. I clean the room when I go in there and I clean the room when I leave it. I leave it in a clean state." And I said, "That's so serious." "Well, if it's so serious, then you need to report us to the local authorities." Yeah, the same local authorities who are not doing as District Judge Harper said. Yeah, well, anyway, as I said, the local MP, the local council, everything, they're not doing what this District Judge Harper instructed. Anyway, so because I told this hotel owner everything, I told him about the solicitor, blah, blah, blah. I just hope this is going to get back to Josh. Surely they're going to know about this. They all know about my YouTube channel, so I've got something to say about that woman from that homeless charity as well. I didn't say it on my last video, but I bumped into um, a woman who's gone through absolute torture with a nutter, an absolute nutter. But I'll come to her in a minute, because the woman who threatened me from warming up the homeless charity, saying if I mention her on my YouTube channel, she'll sue me. This woman that I've been speaking to has had help from that woman. And I tell you what, this woman that I've been speaking to, is she's been put through hell. But she openly admitted to me that she's threatened to wring the neck, strangle someone at the homeless hub. So, Monique Prescott, if you're watching this, if you get wind of this, how is it that you can have a lady who, whilst I don't condone her threats of physical violence, she obviously hasn't had the police onto her though, has she? Now, this is a woman who's talked to me about what she's been put through, leaks, and honestly, some stories that she was telling me. She's been with an absolute psychopath in her over 60s home, an absolute psychopath who should be in prison. So much so that the fire department said, if you ever call us out again for what you've put us through, because this woman is a troublemaker. This woman has got an injunction against her to stay away from her own daughter. This is in an over 60s home. An over 60s home. And the way she's been treated by team leaders and people that run this care home, and I'm not going to say the name of the care home, but it's an over 60s care home. And I'd heard about it when I was in supported accommodation when my mother was dying. So yeah. Anyway, so I've gone off on one. I'll stick to the point. So getting back to what I was saying, this receptionist said to me, this lady, so she's brought up the late checkout, which no, again, none of the hotels have got most of the hotels don't have a problem with late checkouts. Um, Usually it's a free checkout until 1 o'clock that's when they charge you usually. Um, but it's at the hotel's discretion anyway. But most of the hotels will keep your bags. It's only a couple of bags. It wasn't a whole load of stuff. Unlike this hotel that's looking after a lot of my things. It's just one or two bags. Um, Now, she'd already said we don't want to do that in case you accuse us of stealing something. Then she's gone on to falsely accuse me. She said, after saying you've been a loyal guest, you've stayed here before, and she was saying it with a very creepy smile. Your thing is, you've damaged some of our things before, and she was doing it like this. Yeah, I'm not joking. She was speaking like this in such a smiley way, a condescending, fake way. You have damaged. Madam, could you just let me explain? I said, no, you're smiling to me and making false accusations that I have broken your. So, anyway, so that's when I walked away. I had to move my bags into the lounge, and that's when this man came over to me, and then he told me that he was the hotel owner, saying, "Can I get you some water?" He gave me a bottle of water. He was ever so nice, and I said, look, I'm so glad you're the hotel owner. I would like you to come and see because I was saying to this receptionist, I want the manager to come and see the hotel room. I'm demanding that he comes up and sees the state of the room that I have left it in. So the hotel manager came up. I showed him the room. I showed him how nicely I'd left the bed and everything. And he said, "You're such a nice lady. You've got a lovely smile." And I said, "Yeah, thank you." I said, "Well, it's because I'm a nice light lady that people have been doing these things." And I opened up to him. I said about this landlady that's in contempt of court. She should have gone to prison. I told him about this weird thing where the police have gone after me for my free speech because I refused to call my transgender sister a man, and the police and the corruption. And at that point, I was trying to keep it on a you know low key until I sat downstairs and showed him my true demeanour and stayed calm and talked to him. And he said, "Well, it's under." I said, "The most. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to tell him about what happened to Darren's hand. I'm not. I didn't tell him about this where I stabbed myself through the arm with a 6-inch knife because he doesn't need to hear that. What he needs to hear is how the MP, the local councillors, and how our free speech is being taken from us, and there's a fight going on that people are leaving the UK. That this hotel owner from overseas needs to hear this. Because if I'm telling him that Ewan Morrison, the local MP caseworker, because he said to me, "Have you been to your doctor's surgery?" And I told him how I'd lost blood. I told him how this Dr. Caro was supposed to write a letter to the council, and he didn't. Instead, he threatened me and an elderly man with police because we politely asked if he'd contact the local MP caseworker. I said, "This is what's going on. I've now had willful medical negligence when I've lost blood. I was severely anemic. I had an iron infusion after this landlady illegally locked me out of a house." So he said to me, at least you don't have physical problems. Well, we'll tell that to Charlie, who's been abusive, because he's written in a letter to the House of Commons that I have mobility issues. But I don't know. I don't know. I've got a severe disability. So, You know what the PIP thing is like, how they make it impossible for people to be on PIP. So these people who do the bureaucracy, the insanity of the bureaucracy, who knows? At the end of the day, I've spent thousands of pounds on these hotels. I didn't mention to him about the illegal immigrants because when I mentioned Donald Trump, I wasn't sure if he liked Donald Trump, quite rightly attacking our disgusting Mayor of London. Um, so, because everyone's up in arms about that, and the king who was never my king, being disgusted at Donald Trump. I mean, I'm I feel very frightened without Donald Trump. Very frightened. I was telling this man how I didn't tell him how I was sexually harassed by a hotel guest, but I said how I was in tears to a hotel guest. I've told him everything. I've told him about this horrible solicitor that I reported, about this marrying on YouTube, this retired 86-year-old lawyer who exposed the solicitor who was abusive to me. And the district judge told me to go to this solicitor and the MP, and none of them have done what they should have done by law. Because he said to me, why don't you go to the council with your suitcases? Yes, he told me to go to the council with my suitcases. What, when they're hanging up on me, when a homeless charity is threatening me? I've only scratched the surface speaking to this overseas Eastbourne hotel owner. I've only scratched the surface. But he kind of knows what the UK police are like, because he was telling me how he had all this evidence of things that he'd had stolen in a cafe, and how the police had closed the case the next day. Sound familiar? Opening cases and then closing them, like BHT. Very familiar. Yes, because it's BHT. The duty solicitors at BHT didn't want to help me at the court because they're the ones whose support workers helped get me into rent arrears in the first place. And then I had to deal with all these lunatics. So, this overseas hotel manager, he's only scratched the surface, just the surface. He was telling me what the UK police put him through, and he was a lovely man. I just can't understand why he's got such a nasty hotel manager and a fake receptionist, because the hotel manager, the hotel owner got the hotel manager to sit down and speak to me. And do you know what this hotel manager said? Wait for it. He did the same thing as the receptionist. He said, you've been a loyal guest, you've stayed here before, but you've damaged things. I said, you're doing this as well. You're lying. You are the manager and you're lying to me. He said, I've met you before. I said, well, I've never met you. He said, well, I remember you because when you checked in. I said, well, maybe you remember me, but you are lying. These are baseless lies. He said, you're not listening to me. So he was arguing. The manager was arguing with me. You're not listening. You're not listening. I said, of course I'm not listening. You're lying to me. You're making up lies. Yes, because this is what narcissists do. They like to, if you make a complaint and they don't like it, they'll find something. They lie, they lie, they lie. Now, this hotel manager was trying to make excuses for him, saying he's young. That's no excuse. There's never any excuse. Do not make excuses. Do not make any excuses for them. I said, and in the first instance, if I'm such a loyal guest and you're saying that I've damaged things, which is a lie, why would you have me back? You see, not making any sense. So the hotel owner got the manager on his own and I just stood outside waiting. and he got him in the no, it was the dining room, and he was speaking to him, and the manager was clearly in their own language getting all uppity, 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 and the hotel owner is trying to calm him down. Like I said, I'm just so glad that it was the hotel owner and not the manager, this boy, that came and saw the room. You have to put your foot down. You have to stand up to them. You have to. Your life, especially if your life is depending on it, for crying out loud. So that is basically, I'm at the end of it. I've just been trying to tell this hotel manager that I've exhausted every avenue. If the establishment is against me, if I as a constituent am being failed by Josh Burundi, my local MP for Eastbourne, if I'm being threatened with being a political prisoner, I told this overseas hotel owner of an Eastbourne hotel how my late mother travelled the world. She didn't want to come back to this country. I told him how she'd worked at sea in the 50s and 60s. My parents met at sea. They got married in South Africa. My mother wanted to settle in New Zealand. She never wanted to come back here for these very reasons. For these very reasons. So I said, look, I've been threatened with being a political prisoner. That's where we're at now. My transgender sister's support worker is swearing at me because I won't call her a man by a chance meeting. And then, just like this manager and this receptionist, false accusations. It's all this narcissism. Anyway, basically, how it all ended was I said, he managed to, we had a chit chat. I told him everything. So now he knows about my Now, because of what happened, I told him what happened at the Strand Hotel and the abuse I got there. I didn't talk about the illegal immigrants, the fact that it was on GB News for illegal immigrants. I didn't say any of that because whilst most of the foreigners are on our side, because this affects everyone everywhere, it doesn't matter what ethnicity you are, what race, what DNA you are. Abba Yahweh knows this is a spiritual war, okay? It's spiritual. This is all by design, okay? But he now knows from me that they protect criminals. If you're here illegally, you're a criminal. You're going to get home before someone like me, an indigenous person. We're going to become a third world country. So this, I think he said he comes from a third world country. I think this hotel manager said he comes from a third world country, but he needs to know that the UK is going to be a third world country. For indigenous people like me can be treated like this. So, I said I didn't talk to him about my suicidal state. And I'm sure he can only guess because he said, you need a doctor, you need to talk to someone. I said, they deregistered me. I told him about this Hailsham practice that I said, there are things going on behind the scenes. They're threatening me with police and then deregistering me. And then I'm being registered with another doctor's surgery in another town without my knowledge. And this is something the MP caseworker was meant to look into, all of this insanity. Anyway, so I just hope that my honesty is helping the situation rather than obviously hindering it. Because he said I was a little bit concerned because he said, well, maybe he went and chatted to the manager at the bar for a bit. Now, I was obviously a little bit calmer about it at this point, but then he came back to me and I said, look, it's going to stick with me. I'm not happy about this. I said, I need to know, where have these false accusations come from? I said, I started by saying, look, I appreciate you're a hotel owner, so you're not, you can't speak for your staff. You know, I know you can't speak for them, but I said, do you think it's just a case of miscommunication? And he said, look, just don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Thing is, though, and I think he gets it, this is just going to be another one on top of another one, on top of another one, and another one, another one, another one, another one, another one. And this is why he's saying, don't, don't. I'll try not to. But even if I don't, it will linger and it will probably come back. Because as it is, my head's flying with everything else. But as he said, you've got a lot going on. But in any case, at the end of the day, it just proves my point about the fakery. You know, I get it from English people, but that particular woman, I had a feeling about her. And it's interesting because every time I've seen that woman on the desk, she was she's always smiley. And she's got a foreign accent. I don't know what accent she's got, but she's always like this, always smiley. But I had this gut feeling, and now I know because every time that I was there, she's got it into her deluded mind that I've damaged things in the hotel room, or maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to work out what's going on in someone else's mind here. It's just narcissistic tactics, but I just knew that there was something about this woman that I didn't like, and I could feel, sense this fakery that wasn't just fakery. That's very serious. That's a deception. That is what Scripture calls the Jezebel spirit, and it's not just women. It happen. Men can have the Jezebel spirit. So I have lost my voice a bit. Excuse me. I didn't have anything to help me sleep last night as well. And to suddenly get this. But Alan, whose father was a Freemason, his father was an interceptor who tried to stop Princess Margaret from marrying Peter Townsend. No, not Peter Townsend of the Who. I got that wrong. Even Alan, I rang him in distress at the Shoreview Hotel when one of the staff there, I, I never thought that he could be a Jekyll and Hyde character. He's I think he's Chinese, English, and he goes to he told me to go to his Catholic church. But he was always nice, always friendly, and I didn't see it coming with him. Just like that. Boom. But there's a lot of it in Eastbourne, and that's what Alan was saying to me. And Alan's got friends in high places. He said, I'm one of the most well connected people. He knows the person who owns the Cookmere Valley, he knows lords and ladies. As I said, his father was a high ranking Freemason. Now, as I was getting back to this woman I mentioned earlier, very briefly, Linda. Oh, I shouldn't say her name. Oh, well, nobody knows who I'm talking about. this woman who's in an over 60s home, who's had leaks and all these things. She's from southeast London. She's a typical Londoner. Like my mother, my mother knew people like that because my mother was a Londoner. My mother had a privileged upbringing during the war. Londoners, now in London, you complain, there are less people that work in those services, but they get the job done. Down here, there are just a lot of that busybodies, busybodies, yeah, um, who have all these titles and do sweet. A lot of troublemakers, a lot of useless support services. Eastbourne, East Sussex, down here on the coast, there's so much of that. That's why they don't like me. I'm a lovely lady, and because I speak the truth, people are afraid of me. Now, Alan, you're right. I am a lady. Because my mother had a privileged upbringing. She brought me up to be a lady. She brought me up to write properly. I see that clip of Prince Philip, and it reminds me of my mother, appalled at the state of a child's handwriting. You know, because that's how my mother brought me up. I am a lady. I was brought up with etiquette. I was brought up very well. Unfortunately, I've got the working class trauma going on my father's side. Excuse me. Excuse me. So the point I'm making here. oh, I've lost my voice. I have that lovely fake receptionist to thank. The passive aggressive hotel receptionist who says you're a loyal guest and then makes the most outrageous, serious false accusations. Oh, yes, and the other thing that I forgot to mention, they also went on to falsely accuse me of accusing them of stealing from my bags that I never left behind reception because they've never taken them from me. You see what I mean here? They won't take my open bags, and they've also added this add-on lie that it's because I previously accused them of stealing from bags that they won't take from me anyway because of a hotel policy. Yes, you try and make sense of all of that insanity. So there's all I can say is a misunderstanding, communication issues, call it what you will. They've obviously had issues with other guests complaining and being so nice about it. So nice. But when you make that serious false allegation with all those smiles, obviously accusing, well, criminal damage. Now this hotel owner gets it. Me and my partner have had, and I said to him, I said it gets very. Now I didn't want to talk about what happened with the knife because he doesn't need to hear that. And that's not damage to anyone else's property. It's damage to my arm. Darren's where he snatched a knife from me because I have been trying to kill myself because of what the hotel has put me through. But there's never, ever, even throughout trying to kill myself in these hotels, I've still kept the room clean. Do you see what I mean? We do the British stiff upper lip. We're extremely tolerant in this country. And whilst so many of us are trying to kill ourselves, and as I said to this hotel owner, I said, what do you do when no one will do anything? I could scream, but it won't help because I'll just be arrested. he got it. Anyway, he said it was nice to meet you, said goodbye. And on that note, I hope that when I go back to this hotel, that my bags have not been stolen. Because obviously they wouldn't put them behind the desk, and the irony is that I've had to leave them in the lounge. They've only got wash bits in there and nothing of value, otherwise I wouldn't have left them. But having said that, was the whole idea of asking them to put them behind the reception. You know something? When I left school, I wanted to have a go at being a hotel receptionist. No thanks. I don't want to be Polly. I don't want to be on the receiving end. Thank you very much. But I treat people how I want to be treated. That's why I was so popular with the elderly people, the residents, and why I was bullied by both patients and staff that I've worked with, that I've cared for, and where I've also been a patient. Welcome to the world of being a super empath. That's just the way it is. That's the way life is. Um, but I do feel that this is all happening for a reason. So anyway, I'll go and collect my bags. Pray that they're still there. Abi Yahweh. I must keep praying. I must keep praying. Because for one thing, it would be so easy to point the finger at my partner. He's supposed to, I mean, it's 3:30. He said he was going to come back to the hotel. Um, he was only going to pop back to the flat and he never came back. He was meant to stay with me. But he's done this before, you see. And the last time he was meant to stay with me at West Rocks Hotel, what happened? Police turned up to check on me, and then the night porter and his colleague, who had listened to me in the night, had talked about how awful all the other hotels are where they've worked. They then threatened me with police. So welfare checks turn into threats. It is very, very frightening. And I am a survivor of all the English people out there who are on the streets, who've illegally been forced into street homelessness and or suicide, and all this fakery and all the corruption, and why every 5 minutes a millionaire is leaving the UK. Every 5 minutes. Yes. So anyway, I'm going to finish now. I'm going to finish this video, and I've been very careful about how I put it out there. But I do find it very interesting that despite what this lady who she was, I know I've said her name and I shouldn't have said it. She was a council tenant with Lambeth Council in London for 30 years. She threatened Eastbourne with Lambeth Council so that they'd pull their fingers out. But she's got the contacts, you see. I don't. I'm not from London. So, but she told me, she's very quiet, very calmly spoken. But she said she got up in the face of one of these people from the homeless hub and said, I could effing strangle you. She does use the F word, but then she has had leaks. She has been. Now, I do not condone threats, violence, or any kind of aggressive behaviour, including passive aggressive behaviour like this hotel receptionist. But I just find it very interesting though. They pick and choose the people that they want to bully and threaten, i.e., this lovely lady. Alan, I hope you hear about this. Alan, the one whose father was a Freemason, an interceptor for Princess Margaret and Peter Townsend. I it would be good if you got wind of this. Why all these men say, I love you, you're a lovely lady, they're kissy. If you love me as a friend, well, Abba Yahweh, the Almighty. Well, anyway, what can I say? I'm now going to chase up my partner because I think he should come back to that hotel with me. Not that he will, because there are people who are saying, why is Darren not supporting you? My partner is scared of what I say on my YouTube because he doesn't want to be attacked. Well, why be afraid? Why be afraid? I'm the one who's going through this. You go back to your flat, and I've got people saying to me in the town, why's your partner not supporting you? You've gone back to your flat. You're supposed to be coming and helping me with my things, and I'm getting all of this bullying and threats and false accusations and narcissistic abuse. People are saying, where's Darren? Where's anybody? This is what I was saying to this hotel owner. Where's anybody? Where's the local MP? But you heard it on my YouTube channel. You heard it here first. Whatever happens to Bryony, you heard it here. So on that note, I shall go back to the hotel. I shall find my partner. It's 3:35 in the afternoon. I've had this bullying again. Bags at the other hotel. Where's Darren? He's never anywhere to be seen. Again, I want to be careful because obviously I still want to protect me and my partner, both of us. I want to, but so I have to be very careful with YouTube because there are nutters out there, and with all this corruption, with everything I'm going through, and like I said, I wanted to be very careful speaking about this hotel owner because he was nice. It was his star. Welcome to England. Shalom, shalom, Yahweh. Over and out. My partner's been encouraging me not to buy things on Shabbat, but we're now on the first day of the week. The first day of the week, Sunday. That pagan worship, sun worship thing, Sunday. Over and out. It's nearly been an hour of yakking. Nearly an hour.